Okay, so once again, welcome to episode 3 of Sitecore Products Tips and Tricks series. And this time we are with Nick Papadogoulas. Implementation tips and tricks for Sitecore Search will be our topic. And we are looking forward to this webinar. I think it will be very interesting for anybody who is busy with search. So could you, Nick, could you please go to the next slide? Yeah. So Nick is Senior Technical Product Manager for Search in particular. So he knows a thing or two about search for sure. So he's one of the great subject matter experts on the product. And I will be hosting today. I am Daria Bogdanova. I am a customer and partner enablement manager at Sitecore. So I give now the floor to Nick to start his presentation and enjoy the next hour.
Thank you very much, Daria, for the intro. So yeah, I'm Nick. I take care of roadmap and backlog for search, and I have prepared quite some material today to walk you through what we've been busy with, at least for the last 6 months. I'm going to take you actually through some of the challenges that one of the internal teams implementing Sitecore Search faced. This is the team on the developer advocacy side, and they implemented Sitecore Search on developers.sitecore.com. And from that, we're going to build out today's agenda, go through a bunch of examples, and then see what this actually means as an end product for the application on the website and what it looks like within CEC, which is our configuration workbench. So, short trip back in time. This is one of the slides that the team prepared back in May when they were going through this to share their knowledge as part of some of the sessions that we had. And you can see here that they were worried about index source failures and how to debug it. They got help, of course, from the product team, and there were people throughout the journey to help them when they were getting stuck somewhere or to give them information on how to do certain more advanced configurations. But the element of self-troubleshooting was something that was missing at the time, and it's one of the main initiatives that we have been working on. Likewise, when you are working with crawlers, essentially what you're doing is instructing the app where to go to collect information that are then saved in your index, and they are available for your end users to query through the search application on your website. And there is a whole bunch of options there. Other websites have sitemaps that you can use. Other pieces of information are not available over public websites. They're hidden behind APIs and so on. And it's something that takes a bit of working with to get used to the configurations and the different options, but it certainly becomes easier the more you do of it. And one part of the crawler definition is the document extractors, which is something that the team also worked with, and they had questions. And based on the questions and feedback we received from the team and from partners and clients throughout, we've also worked on improvements on that. And the last part they mentioned was how to make sure that you get the best results near the top to have the optimal experience for the user. This is not a new thing. We know that Google also says that 95, 99% of the users, they don't click past the first page of results. Actually, most of them stay within the top 3 results. And that's another thing that we've always had top of mind, how to build out this product to enable you to get the most relevant content to your users very fast and efficiently. So yeah, this is the overview of what was happening back in May. And between now and then, we've been busy with quite some stuff. And I'd like to highlight some of the things that we have worked on. Of course, there's been more and more releases, and you'll be able to see this in our changelog as well. But the two main themes have been the ease of implementation and the ease of configuration. So To make it easier for developers and for configurators to onboard themselves into Search, we released an initial training which has an introduction, a part that is targeted in technical configurators and a part that is targeted in the business users. And it takes you through all the different modules of search terminology that is used within the app, and also contains quite a lot of screenshots from our configuration workbench. And it has some little knowledge checks at the end of each section. And next to that, in July, we also released the SDK documentation and the SDK playbook, which essentially provides copy and paste reference for code that you can use in your frontend. The SDK is something that this team already worked with during their implementation, but back then it was early days. Now you have a whole bunch of supporting documents that can make your life easier along this journey. When it comes to ease of configuration, we actually went into those web crawlers that you're defining as a configurator, and we provided them with default values that are used to actually extract information from web pages. They adhere to the Open Graph protocol, which is very commonly used across web pages, and is also good for your web pages SEO score and Lighthouse score. So it's something that is considered an industry standard. And for a lot of the most recent websites, it's being implemented anyway. And we managed to bring this into the app by default to cut down on the time that you need to spend configuring a first crawler. Next to that, another challenge, even though it wasn't mentioned in the previous slide, was the ability to duplicate sources and configuration of sources. As you're going to see later on in the demo, this team had to set up quite a few sources and combine data from different places to bring them into one search experience. And sometimes the changes between sources were minimal, and it was difficult having to configure them every time from scratch. And that's another thing that has now been added to the application. Finally, you can rescan and reindex all of your sources in the click of a button today within our CEC platform. And you can even terminate existing runs, scroll runs, and other things going on in your sources, also at the click of a button, so you don't have to wait for a process to finish before you can update your settings again. Last but not least, we have released source error reporting, and we're continuing to iterate on that and to add information and to make it as user-friendly as possible. And all of this adds up to some of the pain points that were listed previously and that have also been discussed in our community Slack. And they were really top of our priorities to be addressed. So today, I'm going to take you through how I would approach an implementation if I were to see Search today for the first time, and talk a little bit about how you can use all of the resources that are available out there and the implementations that are already live to get ideas for yourselves, but also for your clients if you're working as part of a partner client model, and what the source error reporting actually looks like today within the app, the experience and the business considerations that you also need to talk to the team that will be responsible for running this once you've set it up, and then different types of sources that have also become available since then, and what is coming up in the horizon. So as I mentioned before, the first and most interesting part was the training that has been released. You can see it's under early release material. It's free for the rest of the year for sure. And I think even beyond that, there is different ways to access depending on whether you're a client or a partner. But the important thing is that it's there, it's listed, and it's something that can help you familiarize yourself with the platform and with the different terminology that is used quite fast. We are committed to continue to grow this, so you can expect more training coming up from that same place, and hopefully eventually certification path as well, depending on how fast we can prioritize this with the learning and development team. Next to that is the Sitecore Search SDK. This is in version 2 currently, and it it is meant to drastically reduce your development time, not only because it provides this copy and paste reference that you can take, put in your front end directly, and then use different styles and override components with CSS, but also because it provides wrappers to all the key APIs that we have and essentially leaves you with less work that you need to do, at the same time enforcing best practices when you are programming to integrate these services into your front end. So the API is there. You can still work with a direct API integration, but we are highly recommending that you do actually use the SDK and take advantage of all of these services. In here, I'm listing the NPM packages that are available. This is the documentation for the SDK, and this is the storybook where you can find everything that exists within the SDK as links and as copy and paste reference for the different components. Now let's talk a little bit about the error reporting. As you can see, this is a screenshot from the application. We will also look through those examples directly in the application in a bit. In the analytics part of the application, there is now a dedicated part for sources. And within there, you can see an overview of all of the sources that you have and whether they were successfully executed or not, and what happened during the last run, when the last run took place, what's the status, and a bunch of other important information. So at a glance, you have all the information that you need in order to know what went wrong in your configuration, if anything. You can copy this and paste it to the editor of your preference, and you can even switch between different runs and see, even if my last run was successful, why did the one before or 2-3 runs before yield specific errors? This is the switching between jobs part that I just mentioned. And the other thing that I would like to highlight is that this information is not only available in analytics for you to visit, but also within the source page itself. What we have observed is that when configurators are going into Sitecore Search for the first time and they are configuring their sources in order to bring their data to the platform and make it available for searching and querying later on, they spend a lot of time in these pages. So within sources, you will spend time defining where your crawler needs to go, which are the sites that they need to visit, and specific rules for extracting information and storing them into attributes of your index. So you actually go to this page, you publish your changes, you then wait for the crawling run to complete and want to know what's going on. For that reason, we have included both the link to analytics button directly in the source page, but also the ability for the last run to view what happened in detail without having to even leave that page. So as we're going to see later on in the demo as well, you can just click on view details and instantly see anything that went wrong if during your last run there were certain documents dropped or things that you would like to be aware of as a Sitecore Search configurator. At this point, let's say that with all of the documentation, with the SDK, with the ability to self-troubleshoot through sources and through analytics for sources, you have all of the ingredients to cook. But it's still not clear what we're cooking and how to conceptualize essentially your search implementation. Another thing that we have noticed is that a lot of the customers, they haven't imagined what the search experience could look like on their website. They don't necessarily have design ideas for that. And some of them are even self-implementing. So it's not like even everyone has a partner to help them ideate, help them prioritize, and define what search could do for them. So for that reason, I'm going to use two of the implementations that we have done within Sitecore. The one for Sitecore developers and the one for the documentation website of Sitecore, which is docs.sitecore.com. They are both powered by Sitecore Search today. And I'm going to show you how they thought about it before they started implementing it, and also what it actually looks like, the end result on their website, which you can see live and you can play with and you can demo to different customers and prospects, as well as the configuration behind the scenes, which is the part in our CEC configuration workbench. So this first slide is for search on the developer portal. What this team wanted to achieve is when a user comes to developer portal searching for specific information and having a question, to have a central place under which they can type their question and get the result as fast as possible. What's particular about the developer portal, but also for the documentation pages of Sitecore, is that they need to combine a lot of content under one search experience, which is what the industry calls federated search, bringing together content from different sources and combining it under a single search. But they don't necessarily own all of the content that they are indexing. So in documentation, you have a lot of documentation links which are stored under documentation and maintained from that team. But on the developer portal, you also have links from YouTube, you also have links from Sitecore Learning, from GitHub itself, and a bunch of other sources. So the main challenge that they were looking to tackle, and the one that Sitecore Search helped them with, was bringing together all of these different sources under one search experience, and then being able to create your filters and facets, being able to navigate through those to change the sorting and the order in your results and all of these things. And this is exactly what they were able to do using the different parts that we have already showed in the intro of this meeting. And that's why they managed to achieve bringing this all together essentially under one roof. It's also one of the reasons why they previously hadn't invested in a search experience, because combining like 4, 7, 10 different sources and putting them under the same search was not as straightforward. It was very consuming. And even if they managed to do it with different technology, it would be hard to maintain. So this is what search results look like today. And we're going to see it also in the demos. If you go to our developer portal and search for something, you have the main list of results. You have your ability to configure sorting, how many results you're showing, the term that was searched, which are the terms matching the documents within the items that are returned at the top, and a bunch of filters that you're able to select from on the left-hand side. As a basis, this is some of the main things that you can do with the search results widget, which is a headless component that you can incorporate on your website. And here in the next slide, we also have the variation of this that the documentation website has used for the same component. So essentially, same kind of functionality, ability to see matches highlighted, ability to see the terms and the overall results that are available if you continue scrolling through the API, configurable facets and sorting options so that you can choose and filter and narrow down your results, but just a different look and feel. The same underlying technology, using the SDK you integrated in your front end, and you can override any styles that you want. You can change where these are placed or presented, and you can configure your options from the CEC configuration workbench, as we're going to see afterwards. Now, this is the page that you land to if you actually perform a search and click enter or click search to take you to the full page results. Another experience which is also very commonly used is the preview search. So as I'm typing, search is coming up with type ahead suggestions that are reactive to the terms I'm typing. So if I've typed XM Cloud, before I even click on enter and get taken to the full results page, I can see suggested terminology that I might want to look into as part of my search. And I can see directly matching articles that I will also see in the full results experience if I click enter and I'm taken to the next page. Another reason why this speeds things up and it provides a premium search experience is that, first of all, I have suggested terms that are commonly searched with what I have already typed. And this even starts before I have typed anything, actually. So you're going to see at the demo that just by clicking on the search bar, I can already get suggestions based on what the users are looking for. And when I start typing, as the list is getting continuously updated, I can also see results that I might be interested in. So I don't have to go to the full search results page only to land to the content details item that I'm interested in. I can click directly on the article here if it has come up in the top results and be taken directly to the content details page, as we call it, or the article itself, simply put. And again, these are the two variations of integrating that same widget in different websites. So this is the one on Sitecore developers. And in the next slide, you can see the same widget on the Sitecore documentation webpage, and specifically documentation for search. What is interesting about this case, and I would also like to highlight it, is that we have two extra filters that are even presented within the preview search. So documentation in Sitecore is typically split for users and developers, which is the two personas for business practitioners and technical configurators. And you can see here that they wanted to maintain this visible even within the preview search. So yeah, here's probably a little zoomed out, but you're going to see in the demo as well in a second. There are tags that show you where this document belongs to that is being suggested to you. There are suggested terms for you to look up, just like there was in the previous screen. And there is even, yeah, I think not in this example that I haven't typed yet, but there is even versions, if we're talking about the on-prem part of the software, that this documentation is compatible with. So all of the things that you might be interested into surfacing as information, they are right there for you to find and to fine-tune, even before you have gotten into any detailed view or into a page that is only dedicated in search. So it really is a way of making the search experience part of your website, and even an integral part of your website, because it allows people to get to information faster. And that's what this is all about at the end of the day, the ability to make sure that the user gets either their question answered or gets served with the right information in the least amount of time possible. We don't want users clicking around and getting lost in different links and deciding to leave the website or having to spend a lot of time before they can find what they're looking for. Let me now show you some of that on the actual website and on the configuration workbench. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And I will share my browser so we can go through actual examples of those. Can you now see my browser?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So here, let's start with the documentation page. I'll show you one more thing that I haven't highlighted in the presentation before. This is a search bar within Sitecore documentation for search. I'm in docs.sitecore.com/search. If I start typing here, let's say that I'm interested in how I can configure filters for search. I can see filtering facets, sort and filter notification, understanding and filters, and so on. These are the suggestions that I might be looking for. And if I click on view all results or just hit enter, I'm going to be taken to the full results page of that implementation. I could already have picked a filter just from before, a content item from before, but I wanted on purpose to be taken here. So what you're noticing here is that because I started my journey at the sitecore.com/search website, the system knows that I'm interested in search documentation and not just in any documentation that exists throughout the system. So it has pre-applied a filter for me, and it's limiting me to um, items that are relevant to search. So if I click on the content details page of this, I'm going to be taken to the actual search documents, which is the root for all of our documentation that is available, split into users and developers. Now, what's interesting for this case is that when I first enter the Sitecore documentation page, I can access all the documentation that is available from that unified search bar that we talked about initially. But because this documentation is organized in different sources, so it has been brought to the website in the ways that we explained previously, if I also have the ability to target my search and limit it into a specific source. So what we have done behind the scenes is we have actually defined sources that index the documents of a specific product every time. And I can very well go in here and say, okay, I'm interested in XM Cloud deploy, for example. Take one of the suggestions, be taken to the full search results, and then limit my content to only show me XM Cloud, or I can provide this filter up front for the user for the purposes that we already explained. So you have quite a lot of flexibility, both when it comes to bringing different sources together and offering a unified search experience, but also when it comes to surfacing results that are specific to one section of your website. And this is, for us, in this documentation example, it means surfacing results only from the specific product that the user is interested in at that time. But if you think of other use cases and generalize it a little bit more, it actually means that if you have different categories or different parts of your website that you want to surface depending on where the user is at, uh, organizing them correctly at the configuration workbench allows you to offer all of these experiences very easily by just saying, you know what, when I'm searching from here, I'm actually applying this source as a filter, and I'm only going to get results back from this source. So linking that a little bit back to what we talked about before, and um, we can show the same things in Sitecore developers, but I want the time to actually show you what this looks like behind the scenes. This is the Sitecore. Actually, this is for Sitecore itself, the Sitecore.com implementation. Uh, how it indexes sources behind the scenes. And you can see that for Sitecore as well, for the Sitecore.com website, they have defined different sources and they bring together content from different places. So what you actually do is you go in here, for example, and you instruct the crawler where to start crawling. So you give it some allowed domains, or you give it things to exclude so that they are not considered, or you give it um, certain settings that you want to take into account as you're crawling, all the languages in which you would like the search to crawl. And when this process starts running, you can see that something is happening. Like if I click now on recrawl and reindex, it's going to trigger another crawl and it's going to go through everything and update what I have on my content collection. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, one of the interesting things is that when I actually click on view details now, I can see in the last run that just finished, what happened? When was the last run? When did it take place? And which were the things that went wrong? And I can edit this here directly. I can scroll through the list and try to solve all of these issues one by one. Mind you, this is a big configuration. The specific crawler is visiting almost 6,000 links. So even seeing that there's like, I don't know, 100, 200 errors is not a big deal. It's actually quite small of a percentage. But if I want to crawl everything accurately and make sure that everything is indexed and available for my users to query, I can go in there link by link and make sure that nothing is missing. This is for a marketing website like sitecore.com, but there are other websites where you're posting, I don't know, advertisements for jobs, or you're posting something that got released recently and you want your users to absolutely be aware about. So even missing out on one link can be critical, and we give you the power to have that knowledge. And in here, there is a link to view the same information in analytics. So it knows that I am in the context of a specific source. It shows me what happened for this source in the recent past. And then if I want to drill further into this information, I can go to view this in analytics, which is the more detailed view of everything that's going on there. And I can see what is everything that is available in terms of information for this specific run. So you see that the last scan status is successful. It indexed most of the items that it visited, but it still had some things that it couldn't successfully index. And here it tells me the steps it went through, how many pages it visited, how many items it found, and scrolling down to the actual table of information is the same information that you could see in the view details that I previously showed, also from within sources. I can also filter and see everything, even the things that were successfully indexed, to know what was actually indexed, or I can limit my attention to the things that were dropped. I have the reason right here. I can understand why something went wrong, and then go back to my configuration and adjust my rules until I have managed to index everything successfully. So this is one part of the configurations that your technical configurators for search are going to go through. And this is how we are enabling them to self-serve, to see what's going on and troubleshoot on their own. And then when this has finished, the results of crawling are posted in my content collection. And here I can go and see everything that was indexed, which essentially makes up the total list of results that my users have available for searching. Back to the presentation now, and let me reshare again in the same way I was sharing before to make sure we also have enough time for questions. I'm still going to talk about some things and how they are configured within CC. So if time allows it, I can switch back to CC and show it. But let's start here. Okay, not at the first slide ideally. So this is where we left off. I can assume that you can see my screen again. Yeah, so we went through how this works in the front end, the experiences that you can offer in your website, and some of the parts of the configuration that we've made a lot of improvements on. But there is other parts about how do you decide what you actually store in the index. And the answer to that is within here. So when you enter search, you define a list of attributes, which are the items that will populate when you store what we call an index document in your content collection. So in this configuration that I'm using as an example from the developer's website, you can see that they have a bunch of different fields defined. As an example, there is the body of its article and the content type that they're also using for filtering and faceting, description, IDs, image URLs, everything that was available on the website to index and that was important to show to the end user, you name it. And you can also see what are the functionalities that each of these attributes are used for. These are things that are also mentioned in the training, which I encourage people interested in search to take. And for example, things that you can play around with here is which of these attributes are absolutely required. So which is the minimum set of attributes that I expect each item that is stored in my content collection to have. And if it doesn't have it, or if it if the attributes or if this information is available for extracting at the web page, but I haven't configured the rules properly to successfully extract it, I will drop this item. I will not even store it in my content collection for users to search, because as a business person, I know that if I don't have a content type or if I don't have a name for this item, it actually doesn't even make sense to display it to my users. So this is where the troubleshooting comes in, and the parts that I showed right before in the demo come in, because you can actually see for every item that is not successfully indexed, what went wrong, what was missing, and go and update your configuration so that it is successfully indexed the next time. Another thing which this configuration did, and I'd like to mention before we move over to questions, because I consider it a best practice, is that they indexed the entire body of the articles, but they didn't um, want it returned in the API response. So every time you're searching for something, search responds with the list of items that are matching. This is based on a setting that is called textual relevance, and it's configured by you in the platform. So you have full control over which are the fields, or the attributes as we call it, that you want to look into to determine what is relevant for every user search. But certain fields, like the body, can be huge, can be hundreds or thousands of characters, and if you send them in its API request and response, it will massively slow down the system. However, while it's not smart to have a field that can be, I don't know, 10,000 characters long, um, be sent over the internet, it is needed for you as a business person so that you can match the documents that you actually have in your index. So search gives you this kind of flexibility where you can say, I want this field, I want it stored in my index for every item that I have in my content collection. I'm going to use it for things like textual relevance where it actually makes sense, but I'm not going to force every result to be returned with the entire body. So I can actually go in here and select which are the fields that are returned in the response, and only keep those that I absolutely want to show to my end users of my website, and those that are not slowing down the system or are not causing anything else that I wouldn't like. There might even be hidden fields based on which you determine if something should be shown to a user or not, and you don't want, again, to have available on your website for everyone to observe. So these are some of the things that you can do in configurations. The sources part, I think we already covered. This is just a screenshot of all the sources that are available for the developer implementation. You can see lots of different sources, lots of items indexed. This is how they bring together all of these under one search bar, as we mentioned at the beginning. And one last thing that is very important is the events integration. Um, when it comes to implementing Sitecore Search, you don't just have the components and the items that you want to show as search results, but you also have the ability to power quite advanced analytics that come built in into the platform, and where you can define certain KPIs and things that matter to you. So events are everything that the user does when they're visiting your website. And there is a way to share this with Sitecore Search by sending a specific request with an anonymized user ID. You don't have to tell us who the user is. You just have to provide a unique identifier that this person visited this website, this and these links, they searched for these things. All of these things, all of this information that you're sharing with Sitecore Search, they are used to build up a user profile. And this user profile one of the things that it does is that you can see the overview of the interactions that are happening. You can see how many views you have per widget, per geography, per any context that you suggest that you filter by in the platform. But you can also um, use this for personalization. So as the user is searching, if you know that they have visited uh, a specific website, or that they have searched for XM Cloud, or that they have clicked on an article for the latest releases on XM Cloud, this is stored in the affinities for this user. And the next time they are searching for something, you will curate the list of results specifically to these affinities. So this knowledge that I'm mentioning is provided to search by you as an integrator of Sitecore Search, um, in the virtue of events that the user is going through, and it powers both the analytics and the on-the-fly personalization that is available in the system, and you can choose to toggle on and off. Let's open it up to questions, and if time allows, we can also move and talk about some of the things that we have coming up in our roadmap.
Yeah, everybody is welcome to ask questions. You can raise your hand, for example, and then we'll be happy to answer. Any questions from the audience? If you don't have any questions now, you're very welcome to ask those in the comments to the YouTube video as soon as it appears, and we will do our best to get. Okay, we have one question. How do we crawl PDF or docx?
Okay, I am taking you to what's next. This is a part that is already actually supported in the platform, but I have by chance mentioned it in the last bullet in the slide. So there is a documentation piece that is either currently being worked on or just about being wrapped up. I know because I reviewed recently, which gives you a specific example on how to index PDFs using a web crawler. I can share that in our Slack, and it will also be available in our documentation website very soon if it's not there already. I have to check on the latest status of that. What it does is it shows you exactly how to configure it, how to extract it and store it in your index. And it even has an in-between step where it tells you that if you want to see the output of the entire PDF body and to apply extra transformations before you store this in your index, this is how you should configure a test source only to see what's coming out of the PDF conversion, which is then ready to be stored in your content collection index. So it's one of the use cases that we know are very common. We have demoed before. And like anything that we release, we are also creating accompanying documentation to go with it. So I see that this question is from Balaji. I'm happy to share this in Slack or any other way. You're also
Sure,
part
Mike.
of the
Thank you.
community. And it's something that is being taken care of. Thanks
Nick,
for the
I also
question as
had,
well. Yep.
sorry, I had one more question related to the multilingual, multi-language crawling. So do we have any documentation around that? Support the multi-local?
I don't remember by heart, but there's definitely examples. So I don't know if, again, if it's already published or not, but there is definitely examples that we can share and example configurations that can help you go about that.
Okay, perfect, man. Thank you.
There is definitely the ability to define the locales, reindex your sources so that they are aware of this setting, and then within the crawler itself, list all of the locales for each page that is visited extract this locale. It can be anywhere, it can be in the URL or in a certain field that is stored within the page, and then send this to the index to be saved as another one of your attributes. And this effectively will store different documents in different indexes based on the locales that you have defined, so that you can be ready and optimized to search within different languages very fast.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Yeah,
I see.
Emmanuel has a
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
Hello. Thank you very much for Nick for the presentation. Really good. I'm just curious about the personalization side. I haven't seen any around that. Because we know Sitecore Search is AI powered or machine learning, right? So it can personalize content based on your searches and preferences. So is there going to be another session around this topic?
We can, if the audience calls for it. What are you interested in hearing about specifically? There is machine learning in different parts of the search infrastructure, and it's used in a number of different things, from searching to questions, answers, to calculating affinities and a bunch of other things. What are you more interested in, if I can cover something in the span of this meeting?
I would be more interested in personalization because I think that's what my company wants. But probably someone else would be in some other areas. But yeah, personalization, how we can leverage personalization within search to give the very best experience to our end user.
Okay, so you need to start by integrating events. As I mentioned before, this is the information goldmine that search uses to understand what each user wants or are looking for when they're interacting with your website. What will then happen behind the scenes and without you having to do anything else is that we will calculate certain affinities for each of your users. These affinities are even available in the APIs. There are demos where we even send these affinities to other systems in real time, like a CDP. I don't know if you've seen any of that. And it's information that you can essentially have available and store them and keep them for each anonymized user ID for you to have in the future. The set how search relevance works is that you have different levels.
Yep.
Okay, I had to switch to tethering because there was blackout, which I guess doesn't help with the internet connection. I don't know what was the last part that was audible from what I was explaining.
That you can send affinities to the other systems. About users.
But before talking about sending them to other systems, as long as you have integrated events, we know what your users are looking for in real time. And personalization is essentially a flag within the API. So we will take those events, we will calculate the affinities on the fly for you without you having to do anything else than just send this one request in the page that they visited. And based on that, you can use the flag in our API to toggle personalization on and off. As a hint, I will also just mention, because it yields a deeper discussion, that there is even a setting for personalization itself where you can tune from CC how aggressive you want the personalization to be and how much you want to change the order of results based on the personalization. And then this will automatically apply as a next level of sorting on top of your results. So there is the natural sorting that you would have. Again, you have full control over it based on the different fields that you have indexed. You can play with the sorting and see which are the fields that give you the best matching and assign weights and do all sorts of advanced configurations. On top of that, you have rules that you can configure within search. So you can be very specific as a business person, and without having to involve any technical configurator, you can go into the platform and say, my user searched for this term. Then the platform gives you the list of results that you would naturally see in the context of this term. And then you go in there and you say, you know what, actually, this result, I understand why it's coming up because it has this word in the description or in the title, and it's logical that you are matching it as a search engine, but I don't want to show it for whatever reasons. It's an old article. I'm not in business anymore with this partner. I don't want to use it as a reference, whatever. So I can go in and remove it. I can change it with something else. I can give it a higher value. You have full control over that as a business person. And then the next layer of that is personalization. So what does this specific user want or is interested in? This is taken into account, and it adjusts the search results based on that. So without you having to develop anything, to do any custom machine learning or anything else, you just send the events into the platform that get translated into actionable insights. And because this is something that came from our commerce DNA, and there's different ways to look into that problem, and it's not an easy problem to solve on the fly and to apply very fast. We actually care to apply this within that same session because we know that many users do not visit your website more than once or twice per year, depending on the type of website that it is. And it's therefore very important for you to get to the most relevant result and even the most personalized one, if this is your use case as a business, within that same session. So you don't have to set a limit of interactions that you need before you have learned the user. You don't need to wait for another session before you can act on it. It is within that same session that you can use the knowledge you have gained for this person. And that's the one of the key differentiators, I think, for search.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do you have another time for another one from Anna?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Anna, please. You had a question.
Yes, thank you. I was double muted, so sorry. I have two quick ones, pretty technical. First one is if I want to experiment a little bit and want to retrieve the data from an UAT environment, for instance, am I assuming correctly that it must be publicly available, or is there a way? So if it's behind a firewall, which is usually the case, right? Is there a way that we can connect from Sitecore Search though?
Yeah, there is different things you can do in terms of your crawler configuration. One of these is pass along credentials if it's hidden, the website or the API or whatever it is. Another thing is you can get a range of IPs that our crawler typically uses and whitelist just the specific IPs for crawling certain pieces of information that you don't want to be publicly available. So this is not a platform that is configurable only for things that are publicly available. You have the ability to look for things behind logins and behind any secure configuration as long as you work with it correctly.
Second one, I got lost for 10 minutes. We also had a blackout. Maybe you said it before, but is there a Sitecore CLI available for search? I'm just thinking from the development perspective, and if we set up everything, it would be good to have it in a repository.
Yes, I didn't say it before, but thank you for asking because there is. And it's listed under the same website. So CLI, Sitecore Search. I'm going to drop the link in the chat as well and share here very briefly. If Daria is okay with me changing the sharing one more time.
Sure.
So this is the screen.
Perfect. Thank you.
This is the link, which I'm also dropping in this chat right now.
That was everything from my side. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you very much. So if you have any other questions after this session, feel free to write in the comments to the YouTube video, which I'm going to share tonight. So it will be available for you and you can add comments. And I thank Nick for participating. I think it was very useful for everybody who is working with search, and for some other topics related to search, we will think of what we can provide, what use cases we can also give you, and yeah, just stay tuned, and every last Thursday of the month is our Sitecore Products Tips and Tricks session. It will be always at the same time. So yeah, just you can add it in your calendar as a recurring meeting. So yeah, thanks a lot, Nick.
Thank you, Daria, for the virtual stage, and everyone for the active participation and questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.